Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Paige Hulsey, and this is Turn the Page with Paige, where we uncover the story behind the bedtime stories that children are enjoying. Are You a Forever Family was written by St. Charles County author and foster care adoption advocate Marcy Bursac. The heartwarming book delivers a hope-filled message that forever families are all around us, and any type of family can become one. Today, we are fortunate to be joined by Marcy here in studio. Beautiful book, Marcy, and I mentioned right away, the colors just jump right out at me.
Glad to be here. Glad you noticed. That's one of the most intentional things that I try to do is I advocate on behalf of the 113,000 children who are waiting for a forever family, is really show people the opportunity and the positive choice and who they are, that these really are kids worth noticing and seeing.
Let's talk more about your inspiration for writing this book. What moved you to do it?
Out of frustration. I remember sitting for years, I remember kind of raising my fist to my husband saying there really needs to be a book like this. And part of it is an adoptive mom. I have two kids who hadn't really found themselves a book that they could really identify with. And so a few months ago, I was looking through a few other children's books and thinking somebody else should write a book like, and literally, Paige, out of my mouth came the words for the book. So I grabbed my phone quickly, pushed on the voice memo, redid what I just did, and kept flipping pages in a very different book, trying to explain what I really wanted my kids to be able to read.
So is this book really for children who are in the foster care system, or for children in class around them too, to understand that anyone can be a forever family?
Yeah, and it's really for all of those. It's for kids who have been adopted, those that are friends and peers, those adults that are in their lives as well. So I've even had kids, I have a little boy in Connecticut, I got a recent message from his adoptive parent who said, Jack saw your book, and there's a page where we try to really celebrate the different kinds of forever families, because some forever families have one parent or a grandma or whatever it might be. And Jack identified with one of the families and said, Mom, that page is mine. I'm going to pretend that child in that picture is me. And that's really what it is helping kids go, I'm adopted, I'm represented somewhere, and we can talk about it. But furthermore, for other children to say, adoption doesn't have to be a taboo topic. It might be kind of complex to say that as a young child, but to really say adoption's to be celebrated, adoption is special, and I'm so proud that I'm adopted, or I know someone adopted, or maybe one day I will adopt.
This is such a great tool to help navigate those conversations and navigate those feelings. I want to take a look inside of it and talk about the inspiration behind the illustrations.
So all of the illustrations are real people. So there are people that have been on my podcast, which is called the Forgotten Adoption Option Podcast. Some are my husband and myself. So they're all inspired, kind of a cartoon version of real families who have adopted through foster care.
How can parents use this story to talk to their kids about what makes up a family?
Well, the words kind of come off the page for themselves, and so it's really just reading together. I even have a lesson plan available on my website, forgottenadoptionoption.com, where you can sit down and introduce the lesson. You can read the book together. I have coloring pages, a word search, some great discussion questions. I have some for early elementary school, some for late elementary school, to really take the concepts and go a little bit deeper and talk more about feelings and talk more about who are these kids and where are they? And they're all around us is the answer.
This is just one tool in a big toolbox that you put together.
It is.
I want to talk more about that classroom programming. We have some really sweet pictures of you in the classroom, and you've developed an incredible partnership with some Girl Scouts, right? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so in the Girl Scout program, some are familiar with the Gold Award, which is comparable to like an Eagle Scout in the Boy Scout program. So before that is what's called the Silver Award. So I have a young lady who's at my church, and she just finished 8th grade. And she said, I really want to do a project about adoption. And so her mom pointed her to me, and I sat through the whole church service thinking, what are we going to do together? And I thought, I know exactly what it is. When I published this book, I really wanted to bring it into classrooms. So we spent January through May of this year developing that lesson. So they helped put together different activities in the classroom, like GimKit and Kahoot. We wrote the lesson together to really make sure it was palatable. And as I even had reached out nationally looking for resources and tools in this space, many of my partners said, Marcy, no one's doing this. Like, we don't know how to talk to kids about this. And I kept going back to these two Girl Scouts, Macy and Courtney, saying, how do you feel about this? We're kind of going in uncharted waters. And they said, well, then we need to do it. Like, we need to finish our project. And so, yeah, we kicked off at the end of April with a special party with several of the families who are featured in the book. And then we took the classroom lesson to St. Charles County schools as a kickoff. We also included St. Louis County. I have a husband who's an educator who got his school on board as well. And K through 5, we took the lesson in, and I was even able to present to a kindergarten class. And one of my favorite things, Paige, was in reading the book, I got to read my own book to these students. And this little girl raised her hand beginning the lesson, declaring to her teacher, I'm adopted. And it was the sweetest thing to see how the class responded. And this little boy next to her said, well, why? And the teacher knew exactly what to do. She moved the lesson along and said, well, we're going to get to why kids are adopted. And the little girl raised her hand a second time and she said, I want to share. And so she was able to share a little bit about her story, but she was so proud of it.
That's
to be
beautiful.
Celebrated.
I love that, to celebrate these children.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a great cause, a great driving cause. I hesitate to ask you what else you're up to because you've already talked about so much, but I know you have more in the works.
Yeah, and really what I'm trying to do, Paige, is I'm trying to meet a gap where there's opportunity to help. And right now, what I'm up to next is taking this lesson in the book nationally. So we launched the program as kind of a week, like a reading week for this current school year. And in the future, it's going to be available to teachers school year round. So for some teachers, I know kindergarten teachers in the state of Missouri teach about family in like August, September. They can bring the lesson when it makes sense to them. So that's in the works. And then I actually have a third book in the works for adults. It's called What to Know When You Adopt Through Foster Care. And it's going to be coming out this November, and it's going to be a bunch of anonymous stories from people who've adopted through the system who are just sharing kind of how to prepare you as an adoptive family to know the behaviors to expect, the ups and downs, the red tape, all the things, just so you can continue to forge through that process and help these kids have their forever family.
Those real candid stories. That's great. Okay, I want to get back to children's books. As much as I love this one, I want to ask you really quickly before we go. I know you have a favorite of your own from your childhood. Can you share what it is with us?
I do, and I brought it because I, as an adult, love it too. So my dad was a mail carrier growing up, and one of my favorite stories, I had saved up my own cash page in the first grade, and I mailed my Scholastic money in for this book called The Jolly Postman. And what I love about this book, so that the postman goes around town and gets to visit different people, but what I super love about it is how interactive it is. So you can actually open the pieces of mail that he brings to different characters and see kind of the different things that those different characters are reading. So it's very interactive and sweet.
I love that you still have all the pieces too after all of these years. But I think that's a great example of just how timeless children's books can be.
Absolutely.
Marcy, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing these stories. And I'm also so glad that you at home could join us for this minute for this story as well. We hope you'll stay tuned here to KMOV's YouTube channel for our next episode of Turn the Page with Paige.